Hey guys, welcome to another Speedpaint video. After I filmed last week's video, which was my sketchbook, one of my old sketchbooks, and it's got a ton of Harry Potter sketches, and I was re-inspired to, draw some more Harry Potter stuff. So today, I have a speed paint of Harry, Ron, and Hermione walking to Hagrid's house, because I just really wanted to try that, because I've never actually drawn, like, a decent Harry Potter picture digitally. I don't know what the problem is, I just have issues with it. So this time I decided to stick through it and tried my best. I still don't really like the way it looks, but it's definitely a learning experience because I don't usually draw scenes like this, and that's something I need to practice. And it's got 3 characters, which is crazy, and I'm really excited to show it to you. During the second sketch layer, I actually blocked out all these little sections in red just so that I could get a better idea of the balance of the picture with the values, since there's going to be a lot of dark colors, since the Hogwarts uniforms are a lot of black and gray, so I decided to just fill those in so I could get a better idea. And then here I'm doing Ron's face. And at first I was going to make him look a little bit more like in the movie, but then I decided to go with what I picture Ron is looking. And I actually did that with all the characters. I didn't really try to make them look like in the movies, but I decided to try to make them look the way I picture them when I'm reading the books. But I did use, like, the movie's uniforms, and one of my favorite things about, like, the first movie is when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are walking down to Hagrid's house, and they're wearing their scarves, and they each wear their scarf a different way, and that always, I always enjoyed that, just looking at it. I'm like, oh, it really fits their personalities the way they're wearing their scarves, so I made sure that I did their scarves the way they are in that scene, because I love it so much. And at this point is when I decided, let's just add a background. I'm already doing 3 characters. How much more painful is the background gonna be, right? Yeah, okay. But I did stick to it. Like, at the end, I was like, maybe I'll just leave it with the colored characters, but I did do a background, so anyone who says I don't do backgrounds, again, I'm proving you wrong. Occasionally. Randomly, and not really that often, but still proving you wrong. And now I'm working on the second sketch layer, and I started with Harry, because I really liked the way he looked compared to, like, the other 2 drawings. I feel like he turned out the best, so I started with that. And then here I'm drawing Ron, actually, and then this mouth, like, ignore that mouth, I changed it later. It kind of creeps me out still right now looking at it. I tried to make it look a little bit like Rupert Grint's mouth in this reference photo I had, but yeah, let's just ignore that, okay? And then moving on, I have the scarf, because Ron wears it just open. Like, I don't know what use the scarf has if it's open like that, but that's how he wore it in the movie. And then here's little Hermione, and I gave her the buck teeth that are not quite together because in the book she has crazy teeth and her parents are dentists and they're really looking forward to fixing her teeth, but she's too young at the moment, and that's important for later on. But I decided to give her the big teeth that stick out over her lip because I felt like it, and because it's in the book, even if it's not in the movie. And I gave her huge bushy hair, and then I gave her skirt and her legs. I had a little trouble with the legs because I wasn't sure where they should go to make her look like she's walking, and I think later I make those bigger. Yep, there it is. Made it bigger, and that made it look a lot better. And then once I was done with that, I just lowered the opacity of the whole thing and started the line art. Oh, I jumped a little bit. Guess I lost a bit of footage. Anyway, there's this. So I'm doing Harry's hair, and I realized this was a little bit too extreme, so I think I toned it down a little bit later on. Yeah, there it is. And it looks a little bit better. And I made sure I had the little piece of hair in the back of his head that sticks up in the book. The Aunt Petunia can't fix. And yeah, and then I just did the line art for all the rest of it. Oh, and if you haven't read the books, I'm not sure. It might be a little bit in the movie, but if you're wondering why Hermione's holding a jar, it's because I think it's in the first movie. She invents this fire. Like, she's crazy. She can invent things. That's pretty cool. But she invents this blue fire that she can keep in a jar, and, like, if she needs to put it somewhere, like on Quirrell's robes, she can just, like, drop it onto the fire, or drop it onto his robes, and then when she's done, she just scoops it back into the jar. So I wanted to put that in there since they're probably walking to Hagrid's, and it's a little bit cold outside, so she would have her nice warm fire that doesn't burn anything, which is cool. So yeah, that's what she's holding in the jar. So I made sure later on when I do the fire that I made sure all the fire was blue, and then the lighting coming off the fire was also blue, which turned out pretty cool. And to add just to Ron's personality, that he doesn't really care and he's pretty lazy, I also left his coat strap undone, so the bottom one's just hanging there. Just to go along with it, no other reason really. And then once I was done drawing Ron's line art, I moved on to Hermione, and her hair took quite some time. I just worked on all the little curls, and I decided not to pay attention to how much time it took and just work on it and to enjoy it. I just made sure I had some pretty good music playing and I wasn't getting too bored too fast, and I eventually got it done. Although I did make one small mistake. When I draw curly hair, I usually, which I didn't this time, make sure that I draw like the border of the hair on one layer and then all the curls and extra like flare of the hair on a separate layer. That way, when I color it in, which I like to use the paint bucket tool to color in my line art, I can just turn off the layer that has all the crazy hair, so it's just like the basic shape of the hair that I can see. And that way, when I turn that off, I can just use the paint bucket tool, fill it in, and I'm done. But I didn't do it this time, so I had to either use the paint bucket tool and fill in all the little spaces in the curls, which would have probably taken quite a long time, or I could just use the paintbrush tool and then on a layer just color it in manually, which is what I ended up doing. It's not the most time sensitive way of doing it, but I got it done, and I definitely want to, I think this will help me remember to put all those special curls on a separate layer so that I can save time in the future, but I guess it's just a learning experience. Oh, and I'm coloring, so I should probably talk about that. Anyway, I added the blush to the skin, and I at first made Hermione and Harry's skin the same color, and then Ron's really light, but then I decided Harry probably would have a little bit darker skin since he has a much darker hair color, and I just pictured him with darker skin, so that was another reason. And then here I'm just coloring in the eyes, and I messed up and gave Ron green eyes at first, and I'm pretty sure he has blue eyes. Well, I know he has blue eyes in the movie, but I'm not sure what color they're supposed to be in the books, so I just gave him blue eyes since Hermione had brown eyes and Harry has green eyes like Lily, so gave him his green eyes. And then I spent a little too much time on that scar. Like, it looks so much more realistic than anything else in this drawing, so it's a little awkward, but I like the way it turned out, so I just left it. And then I added Ron's freckles, and it went a little bit overboard, and added Harry's hair, colored that in. I didn't do really, I did a little bit, but not a lot of shading. Since it's going to be 3 characters and a background, I knew shading was not going to fit into one video, so I decided that was the sacrifice I was willing to make to fit this all into one video, and that's why I went with that. But I did add like blush and just like some special effects for like the scar or the glasses and such, and the fire, of course, in her jar. Then it was time to color in the scarves, and I decided not to go with the scarves from the first movie when it's just like solid, well, it's just solid, same size stripes, gold and red. I decided to go with the newer movie scarves because I like them a little bit better. And then I just added the little logos to hit their cloaks, and then it was time to do the jar, and I wanted to make sure the jar was translucent, otherwise it doesn't really look like a jar, so I colored that in behind it. And then it was time to add the fire, so here's the fire, and of course I'm using my layer styles, which I always use when it comes to like special effects things that are like glowing. Then I added some light hitting all the objects from the fire, and lowered the opacity a little bit and blurred it just a little bit. I'm not happy with the way that turned out, but I was kind of done with this picture at that point, so I decided, let's just leave it that way and move on. And then I added the background. This is where I am a complete novice. Like, I have no idea how to draw backgrounds. I pretend sometimes, but this is like the best I can do. But I learned that like the more time you spend on a background, the better it gets. I mean, I know that doesn't work for everything. Like, eventually something's going to start getting worse if you spend too much time on it. But I just kept, adding more things to it and hoping for the best, and it didn't turn out too bad. I feel like since there's characters in the foreground and the background's not that important, like it can pass as a background. But like if I was only drawing the background, like it's not great. Okay. But luckily Harry, Ron, and Hermione can like distract you from the background. That's not bad. Oh, and I decided I was going to add these like light coming through the trees, but I scratched that later and move on without it. Yep. And that's the finished illustration. I hope you enjoyed watching me draw Harry, Ron, and Hermione on their way to Hogwarts. Oh, and make sure if you're going to enter my contest, it ends this Sunday, May 31st, 2015. It's the last day you can enter the Draw Waffle contest, so if you're interested in winning one of those prizes, you might want to enter quickly. You have 2 days, if you're watching this video when it first came out. Otherwise, the other contest in the future soon. So, thank you guys for watching again, and I'll see you guys all next week. Bye!